Hey, well, we were having so much fun in the green room. I just forgot to do the button. But hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is Skywire. And at Skywire, we talk about listening. We share all of our experiences, mine, yours, and anybody in the green room, how we are listening, how we're not, how we can take our listening to the next level, and what it will show us, and how we use our awareness, our consciousness. And in the green room today, we have Katrina and we have Tracy, and I want to welcome them. Hey there.
Hello. Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Cool. Good. So before we actually get started, Katrina, why don't you tell everybody, what do you do for a living and in your work free time? What do you do?
Sure. I'm a creativity consultant and a writer, so I help people find that inner voice within them and put it into words, because a lot of times people struggle with how to do that and talk about themselves. As far as my passions and my free time, I think we already know that one of the reasons I'm friends with Tracy is because healthy things are very important to me, as well as exercise like yoga and sustainability. Those are my passions as well. So if I'm not necessarily at the computer, I'm doing, I'm focused on those types of things.
Perfect. And what about you, Miss Tracy? What do you do?
What do I do? I have a fantastic relationship marketing company with Nerium International, and it is a blessing that I found a company that I could partner with that is fully in line with all of my passions of, like Katrina said, health, wellness, full body, mind, body, spirit, energy listening, and be able to marry both of those two together. And yes, sustainability and sustainable change has a lot to do with both. So that's me.
Perfect. And Katrina, you said something about, in essence, interpreting words, helping people interpret the words that they want to write, and you help them do that. Maybe one day, one of these Skywires, we can focus on that, because there are a lot of people out here in this world that we're living in now with the opportunity to write books. And
sure.
It's very difficult, challenging, I should say, to connect your emotion and your thought and your wisdom and put it into a word that really hones in on what you want to say, and it sounds the way you want to say it. So that might be something that we do, focus on that particular subject, if that's okay with you.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, basically what I do is I am a life and business coach. I have an online talk show. Huh?
I said I would watch.
What was that? Oh, good. Perfect. Yeah, I would watch too, because, we have an opportunity to be writers. So anyway, I have an online talk show every Monday, internet, online, TV, radio, talk show. Then I do Skywire. I like a business coach, and I also the co-founder of a group of women's networking groups in the country and other things. So we'll get to that sometime. But digital listening, and I want to encourage everybody that's listening out here and watching to please feel free to comment. We'd love to hear what you have, anything that you have to add to our conversation. And in the future, if you would like to be in the room with us, by all means, because we don't have all the answers. What we have are questions and curiosity, and we have a community of people who are willing to come together to share, to explore the answers. So don't feel like you got to know it, because digital listening is not, it's new. I mean, we're going to talk about things like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm looking for your wisdom to come together so we all can share. And we do have, it says Gainful, and she used H-E-A-R, so she's got a sense of humor. So digital listening. Tracy, what do you think digital listening is, or what do you know it to be?
I know it to be confusing. I know it to be a challenge, and I know it to be exciting. So all of that rolled into one. And I think with digital listening specifically, we have to take an interpretation of tone and texture and intent and communication skills. And oftentimes we are listening to people we don't know that well. I can have a chat conversation with my nephew, and I can hear his voice and know exactly how sassy he's being and all of that. But you go to Joe, who I just met, and I have no idea what his cadence is to his voice, or you know, fun and snarkiness and seriousness. And so I think digital listening is a challenge for a lot of us, and hopefully we'll explore that today and break through some of those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. And what about you, Katrina? What do you think it is? Or what do you know it to be?
I would definitely agree a lot with what Tracy already said, but I also think there's a second element of responsibility. So while digital communication definitely makes things easier and you're able to talk to more people more easily, it definitely adds another layer of challenge, because there's a lot more of those subtle clues in terms of having that in-person conversation that aren't always available. I think it leads people to sometimes jump to conclusions, and I think that can make overall communication more challenging, especially when you're trying to build relationships with people that you don't already know.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And I have a quote that I thought I would bring up, which makes a lot of sense, I think. And keeping in mind that the digital listening, we're in a digital world. So we tend to come into these, you know, leaving a message really quick, writing a comment really quick. Everything is quick because it's digital. But, you know, and we also think that because the world, we're talking to the world, that our intention doesn't have rate. It is when we walk into a room or we engage with you face to face.
Mm-hmm.
But not so, because we're leaving. And anytime we leave an impression, we want to make a good impression. So here's a quote that I have. And, let's see, where did it go? Oh my goodness, it disappeared. Oh, here we go. The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. And that's Peter Drucker. So that is what the digital listening is all about. It's really tuning into so many nuances, so many things that we may not pay attention to under normal circumstances, because we have other things to rely on, like facial expressions. You know, we have somebody, you know, we can feel somebody's energy face to face that we can't necessarily feel when we are in the digital world, but we really have to hone in. So you're exactly right, Katrina. There's more that we have to do.
Well, so, and there's expectation too, right? The expectation that if I write you a note, I already have in my mind, this is a reasonable time that I expect a response. So the expectations can make things challenging too, right? Like every person has a different expectation about what quick communication is or quick responses.
Exactly. So, okay, so these are some of the things that I was thinking about when we're talking about digital listening. So I wanted to talk about even your headshot. What your headshot shows. What is the look of a business card? You know, how do you want to come across? And then Katrina mentioned the bio. Very important. What is it that you're saying in your bio? On Google Plus, they want you to put everything, but not every place wants you to do that. So you have to tailor your bio for the social media network, or somebody going to read it? If somebody's going to read your bio, keep in mind you're not going to want a page bio for somebody to stand up and read necessarily. You want the point. So let's talk about a bio, for instance. Katrina, what do you think about a bio and how should it be when we're talking digitally?
Digitally, I think people forget that you want to be consistent. That's the most important thing. So if you write a longer one first, and then you kind of take out pieces that are relevant for each social platform, that actually is I think the most strategic way to do it. And then it helps you sort of get used to your own story. So you've got your elevator speech sort of already compact and put together, and then that way you pull out the parts when you're reading the relevant people, and as well as the relevant social platforms, you can talk about things that make sense there.
Exactly. And sometimes when you say who you are, it's going to change. Because when you're expressing who you are from your heart, it's not like every word, you haven't memorized every word. There can be certain nuances and things you say that are just new in that moment, and being comfortable with it and not having it be exactly a certain way. Tracy, what do you think?
I don't know if you're going to allow this or not, so I'm just going to do it and ask permission later, kind of thing.
Anything.
I am not a writer at all, and I have no skill in getting who I am and what I am onto a written word. So this whole digital communication is, like I said, a fun and exciting thing I get to learn and practice every day. And with that said, in regards to bio, the beautiful lady sitting next to you helped me hone my message. And, you know, we had quite a few conversations about it, really kind of got to know each other well in the process. And then when I gave her my kind of bullet points of what I wanted to say, she knew me well enough to be able to help me craft really, and I just edited it a bit, but help me craft my message so that when people read that, they're hearing really who I am and what my voice is, so that they can listen to me in that way. Because people who I don't even know, I've got like, I don't know, 5 new Twitter followers in the last 5 days, and the only thing they know about me is what they read on my bio. So I think bios are really important to not just say what we do. You know, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I'm a musician, I'm a mathematician, I'm a whatever, but really who we are, so that that listening element comes in. Oh yeah, just another this or just another that, but oh, this is a heart-centered person who has passion in, you know, maybe I should be listening to her more. Because when you open all facets of listening, like we've been talking about for 4 weeks, I think it grows. And I like what Katrina said about having one big long one and then being able to pull parts or shape parts to your audience. Because my Pinterest audience is different than my Twitter audience, different than my Facebook audience, different than my G+ audience. And so you really have to, I don't know if you've ever seen Private Benjamin, and she's wearing the shorts and's got the, you know, boom box, and she walks into the barbecue and it's on the White House lawn and everybody's dressed all pretty. You got to know who you're talking to and be able to use their language. I just watched that movie the other night. It was a hilarious scene I forgot about. But it goes to knowing your audience so that you are taken seriously even in your listening skills.
That's perfect. So that ties in with what I kind of glossed over with knowing who your niche is, what is your brand, you know, what are you representing. I mean, I like to think that I am who I am no matter what I'm doing. You know, I am this, period. And so whether it's my personal page or my business page, this is what you're getting. And it's very true, because it's not just who you're talking to, but who's listening to you. You know, I mean, Pinterest people are going to listen differently than maybe the audience on Facebook and on Twitter. You might want to just get more to the point, and you've got to pay attention and be respectfully, because if on Twitter they want the point, you're not dragging it out. You want to be respectful to the audience, the entity or the way the audience goes. Otherwise, they're not going to listen.
And you only have 100.
That's really important. Your headshot goes along with it. Yeah.
So what do you ladies?
It's like somebody.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I was gonna say, what do you ladies think about the automated kinds of, like, when you schedule your social media? Like, it doesn't mean that you aren't in some of your content, but it does kind of take out some of the conversation parts. So I'm just curious how you ladies feel about that.
Well, me personally, I always, when I'm writing them, I make sure that I sound the way I always sound, and I put them out there. I spend a lot, even in writing emails, I read them over and over, because I believe in email etiquette. And I might say something, but then I reread it to make sure that it's sounds like I really want it to sound. And if it sounds too harsh, let's say in email writing, I'll make sure to add a few words here and there to soften it up. But I make sure that I respond.
Yeah.
And that's in anything.
Before we go on, Sheila's out there listening to us, and she said she's bobbing her head up and down with agreement to the conversation, so I love that. And she also said we have to be careful of our reactions to comments. Agreed? So if we craft this beautiful message and somebody comments on it and they didn't get our tone, do we, I don't know, start an argument? Do we, you know, how do we defend our message, I guess, is what Sheila's bringing up in that whole respect of it. And that's a good point. I had a situation, I posted a picture, somebody made what I thought extremely offensive comment to a picture, and I was in town and I couldn't figure out how to delete it, and so I just wrote him and said, that's inappropriate, please take it off. And he was very respectful of it, but, you know, it's the conversation. If I was in a enough party, an after-hours party with the Chamber of Commerce, and somebody made an inappropriate statement, in that conversation, you'd be able to talk to them. So I think those are all good points of communication.
Yes.
No, I think that's a really good
I also,
and this is hard, and we could whoops.
Are you there?
Okay, this covers everything that we're talking about. How do you comment back with an opinion? How do you comment back when you don't like, when you do like something? I think I think being careful, and again looking at the words and asking somebody the question, or saying, or even sometimes I'll click on their name instantly and come in, and I had somebody, I posted a picture which I thought was very funny. I didn't look at it like against women. It was, and I'll have to show it to you all sometime, but I thought it was just funny. And some women's rights wrote it and said she didn't like it. And so I wrote it back and I apologized. I told it wasn't my intent to do that, and I appreciated her comment. Period. That's what I did. And because it was a whole slew of comments.
I think it was... Right. I think it's definitely good to address it. I think you have to feel into the moment and get a sense of what makes sense for you based on your personal value system and what venue you're using. If it's in a public forum, you can say, I can understand how you might feel that way, but, you know, sort of share your opinion at the same time so you're not discounting someone else's point of view. But if you're managing a community like Tracy, where she's cultivated a certain vibe and a certain energy with that, I think that's a little bit different than when you're kind of just interacting with someone on a more personal basis, if that makes sense. So that you have to look at the context as well as what the message is. And, you know, as a community leader, you have every right to be saying, yes, this doesn't fit with my community.
And I do all the time. Marilyn, before we go on, your voice is real scratchy and delayed. I don't know if there's anything we can do to work on it, or if we can just un-earbud, because we were talking about that in the green room. But are you getting that too, Katrina?
Yeah, I feel bad because it looks like I keep talking over Marilyn, and I don't mean to because I think she's done speaking.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the buds that are delayed or what, but just maybe, I know it's kind of weird to address tech issues in the middle of a show, but...
Can you hear me now?
We can, but you're still funnily
Can you hear
delayed.
me now?
We can, but you're delayed.
And that's funny because you're all delayed to me. So let me change my thing.
Okay. And meanwhile, we've got a question from Sheila. Yes, ma'am. We've got a comment from Sheila saying email etiquette. That's so refreshing. Yeah. And No, I don't write very many emails. It's just not how I communicate.
Mhm.
But I know I've received some kind of funny emails over the course, and you know, I don't know. Do you have a community, Katrina?
I don't, but I actually comment in a lot of communities. That's how I got started on Google Plus. So it was very important for me to really tune in and listen first to sort of see what not only the vibe is, but how do they react to commentary? What's their process? Do they normally kind of respond immediately, or what is their tone? All those things are really important. But to kind of pop back to email, there have been, emails. I actually was on an email string that was about me but wasn't meant for me at one point. And it was interesting because it was someone that I was supposed to be helping with something, and I think the woman just misunderstood how I was supposed to come in and help. So her response is like, why do I need her to write something for me? I can do that myself. And then she found out that I was on the email string. So, she was very lovely about it, and she's like, I am so sorry. I was having a really terrible day, and all of those things may be true. But then we ended up working together, and it was fabulous. So, you got to give people some leeway, too. They might just be having a crappy day, and they might react poorly. We all have our hot buttons, and we all have our push buttons, right?
Yeah, and that brings up a good point that's come up in conversation for me a little bit this week as I've been focused on digital communication. Mm-hmm. And, when we are in a crappy day, I got an email the other night, and I had a glass of wine, and it's the first time I had a glass of wine since I had done this 14-day juice process of no toxins. And that first couple of sips really made me a little loopy. Yep. And then I got an email that I wasn't happy about, and I thank goodness had some fantastic advice from a bunch of women that helped me, and they said, don't respond tonight.
Yeah.
It's you're upset, you've had wine for the first time in 14 days, and it's not going to be a pretty communication. Take a deep breath and address it in the morning in a loving, lightful way. And I was able to do that. But, how often do we have a knee-jerk reaction to something that we don't understand because it's tone and all of that? Mm-hmm. And, like Marilyn was saying, when we're in a face-to-face conversation, we can understand from energy reception that person was having a bad day. Yeah. But I like your advice of just not reacting back.
Mm-hmm. Because if you think about all the other people in the community that know you, for example, if this response is taking place in your community, you'd be surprised how many people would jump to your defense anyway, right? Like a lot of people that already have that same vibe, they'd be like, wow, this guy is kind of out of line, or this person they're not resonating with the tone of what's going on here. So because you can't read everyone's mind around you, you'd be surprised how many people are sort of on the same wavelength as you and probably do agree with whatever your reaction would be to this person.
Yeah, I know I got a tremendous amount of private messages when I told that guy to quit being inappropriate on a post with my mommy in it. And people just said, thanks for standing up for yourself, and so there's also a point to listening and commenting that are we afraid to stand up for ourselves in a bad situation because we don't know? This was an influencer that I corrected, and I'm like, okay, I might be shooting myself in the foot about this, but it's my morals and my values and my purpose and center. And if he's an influencer, I'm sorry, he's still inappropriate, and I'm going to, say my true self.
Mm-hmm. And that probably took a little thinking to do, so congratulations on handling it in a way that felt good for you.
Marilyn, are you back?
Well, I can't seem to get the thing right. You hear me at all?
We hear you much better now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that somebody has to hold the energy of something. When you're listening to what that energy is, you have to. And so, Tracy, you're holding the energy for your community. You can let it, you don't have to, that doesn't mean controlling it. That means holding the energy. So when you don't control it, you let things kind of go, but you watch from like being a fly on the wall and watch how, you guide it. And that's what you are doing. And you're listening to how it flows. It doesn't mean you're engaged in the talking all the time, but you're listening to the flow. And when flow is out of flow, you got to get in there and get it back into the direction of your energy, of how you want the community to go. And that's with anything, really. I think it's great what you did. And you have to stand up, and that's part of people listening to your actions and getting permission from you to stand up for themselves. Because too many times, people don't stand up for themselves enough.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a very good point, Marilyn. You're making a very good point.
I mean, and that's in anything, and online too. You can get lost. It's so easy to get lost in this digital world if you don't listen. It's one of the things that keeps you engaged. Mm-hmm. I mean, without listening, you can't just talk here. You got to listen. That's the thing that keeps you involved. I mean, even with what we're doing right now, Hangouts, that's a perfect example. And being involved in Hangouts and getting connected on Google Plus, it's a perfect playground scenario for listening and for being engaged, to listen to who you want to connect with, observing, listening to what they're saying, how people comment. It's a perfect area for practicing.
Right. And it's important to not stress yourself out and be on every single social network available either, because then you're sort of feeling burdened by communicating and listening rather than actually engaging in an effective way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Listening to your feelings. Mm-hmm. If you're overwhelmed. And even right now, I mean, what's the difference? I want you to hear me, but we got to, I'm listening to the fact that the two of you are doing such, you're so wonderful and you can speak so great about so many things so it's not perfect for me. Mm-hmm. That's the way it goes. We can listen to it being perfect without it having to be this thing that we make up about it.
Yes.
Well,
can't do that. It's technology.
Mm-hmm. And how many of us don't talk because we're afraid of the technology?
Right.
There are, you mentioned the whole auto scheduling something. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to name the company, but everybody kept telling me how easy this one, website program was so I could do this scheduling thing. Mm. And, I spent 4.5 hours of utter frustration trying to get the dang thing to work. And I'm like, forget about it. Yes, it will save me tons of time in the long run, but not when I can't even figure out how to do it. And then my message is going to get lost if I don't hit the right button.
Right.
But,
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm going to pop a couple of Sheila comments in here. She says your audio is much better, Marilyn, so I'm glad we got that neeked out. And influencers do not get a pass, yay. And she did say, yay, the wine is the answer. And do not responding, holding your response is very good advice. So I think we all, we wouldn't in our real life, if a spouse or a child or a friend says something, you wouldn't respond in real life until you calmed down and took a deep breath. So if we take that practice of people-to-people communication and apply it to our digital communication, it will be just smoother, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the point. Digital can mirror what we do in it is part of our regular life now. I mean, I was just going to say part of our regular life, but honestly, digital is part of our regular life. It's not separate anymore. It is, in some cases, bigger than the other part. Anyway, it is 11:30, so I want to honor our time. And any final word, Katrina?
I would say whenever you're in a position where you're unsure of how to either talk about yourself or communicate with someone else, definitely take that extra breath, think about it, and always remember that there's another person on the other end of that communication, and you can't know everything that's going on with them. So you have to be really clear on what your heart is telling you and what you feel that you need to say, and try to express that in the most honest way possible.
Perfect. What about you, Tracy?
I mirror everything Katrina said and add that perhaps taking a conversation into private. So something happens out in your stream, and rather than getting into it, quote unquote, in the stream, you know, pull that person aside in a private conversation. If we as employers, you know, it's reprimand in private, praise in public. So that is a good listening skill to do, to pull people aside. We have all the tools for private chat, to take the conversation into a way that is not just so internet open and public. And just keep practicing the skills and connecting. It's fun.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because if you started to defend, just like anything else, if you start to defend something, then you're already wrong. That's already going to put you in a bad frame. So there's no point in doing it in the stream. If you just let it go and handle it afterwards, you're far better than getting all involved within the stream, because it keeps it alive, and then everybody pays more attention to it as opposed to it's dying down. So I think that's really very, very valuable. So with that, thank you both very, very much for being here, and everybody that's been listening, and Sheila, who's been writing some great comments. I appreciate it. I hope Sheila will come into the room too next time, and we're going to do this again. And just, there's always so much more to talk about in the subject than what we have time for here and now, but it opens up this thinking about, okay, how do I use listening here, and how can I hone it better for my brand, you know, in competition, and how am I coming across? If I'm selling health, if I'm a health person, and I'm not showing health in my stream, in my comments, in my posts, in my articles, I need to rethink that. I need to listen to how I'm coming across. So we'll do this again, too. And Tracy, Katrina, you're both marvelous. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's awesome. I had fun.
Next week, same place, different day?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bye.
Perfect.
Bye, beautiful ladies.
Bye. Bye.